Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, we discuss my thoughts on episode 11 of the anime series Sora, Yori, Tooi Basho, or A Place Further Than the Universe. And this was a really insightful episode. It was something that was actually brought to my attention in the comments on my previous video by one of my friends who had said, you know, there are a lot of people who've been really paying attention to some of these little smaller nods to Miyake's past with, you know, track running and things like that. And I have to admit that I am all imperceptive when it comes to any of this stuff. It was all news to me when he had mentioned that on my previous video. And I didn't know whether or not the story would actually yield something of this great an impact, in any case, regarding that. It was really a surprise to me, the troubles that Miyake had going back to her school and what played a part in her dropping out and everything. I didn't really know. I kind of just took it at face value when she explained it in an earlier episode. I kind of just took it at face value that that was the case, you know, that there wasn't necessarily something that could be so relatable to what Shirase had gone through, and even Yuzuki to a point, you know, as far as feeling like an outsider, feeling outcast, feeling bullied, or succumb to peer pressure, or whatever like that. You know, all of these different factors, each of these girls in their own way has been impacted by scenarios like that. And Miyake is no different. And, you know, I mean, for her to be so chuffed up by her teammates, you know, hey, even though the third year's, it's their final year, you know, in the race or whatever like that, don't go easy on them. Crunch down and beat them, you know, win above all. And when she is proclaimed the winner or whatever like that, and this is my impression on what we were, you know, shown, what they depicted, all her friends who were telling her and championing her, hey, beat them, beat them, beat them, they suddenly fell silent. They fell back, and they didn't have her back at all. They put her out in the front, and she thought she had done something good. She thought she had succeeded, and apparently she just sort of fell under the thumb of everyone else's judgment and disdain for this. Like, you know, I think somebody says, well, didn't you tell her? Didn't you tell her to, like, rein it in, like, dial back a little bit? Give the third year something to go out with a bang, you know, let one of them win kind of scenario. And that's a little unsporting, you know, let them win because it's their last year, you know, that kind of thing. I mean, there's a level of respect there on the one hand, you know, playing devil's advocate, but at the same time, it's like, you know, you're in the sport to win, you're in to compete. So I don't see Miyake as having done anything wrong, necessarily. It's mostly the people that you know, put her up to it. And I love that Shirase, who has been, out of all of the girls, I would say somewhat more timid, more or less, you know, willing to be an outcrying voice, that kind of thing. She's always more reserved. For her to come to Miyake's, you know, sort of aid, to have her back in the way that she does in the episode, was spectacular. I love toward the end when they're going to have the video conference, you know, Miyake cut off the first attempt with her pseudo friends, her trio of friends that wanted to have some nice kind words with her. And I'm sure there was no small part of being attention grabbers and attention seekers and whatever like that, because they knew it was going to be televised or something, you know, and have a pretty face on camera, you know, make the guys of being good friends and whatever. And Miyake's not having it, and, you know, all the while Shirase's picking up on all of this. She's, you know, witnessed her having just an aggravated, you know, rage fest with a bucket in the snow. Piss off, piss off, piss off. And I was, again, my eyebrows were making a beeline for my hairline. I was surprised by a lot of this, how poorly affected Miyake was, but the facade, the face she wears of joy and happiness, you know, there's a lot of question going on throughout the episode as Shirase is observing her. How much of this is fake? How much of it is a facade? Why isn't she dealing with her emotions? You know, why is she hiding it? Why does she have to go off by her lonesome, kick a bucket around, smash her you know, foot into the snow, and you know, sort of manhandling a pile of snow to fuel her rage and process it? why not deal with it? Why not actually face it and face up to it, you know? And so I was wondering the same thing. As Shirase's trying to sort of observe Miyake, I'm wondering the same thing, and I'm observing her as the viewer, you know, much as Shirase is doing. And so by the end, I love how Shirase, there's that one line she says something like, you know, Miyake's kind of too nice to tell you off, you know, to tell you how she really feels. I'm unlike Miyake, I'm a jerk. I'm going to tell you, bold-facedly, piss the F off. And I loved it. I loved that rallying cry that Shirase, you know, she's very much evolved and come into her own. We've seen it piece by piece, little by little across the whole stretch of this series thus far. And it makes me wonder, too, because the other leg will eventually drop that will, I believe, close out the series, revolving around, you know, like the captain was saying earlier in the episode, or not the captain, but the team leader, Torogin. You know, she was saying, effectively, we've got to kind of go back, and maybe I want to go back, I'm not sure if I want to go back, to where they effectively lost Shirase's mother. And I think Shirase is going to be part of that trip, and I think that's the drama with which, you know, the series will close out. At least that's my speculation. But it was really awesome to see Shirase having grown so much, evolved so much, that she's telling these people off. You're messing with a friend of mine now, bitches. F off. You know, and how Miyake sort of breaks down. There was that great little moment where, you know, Shirase drags her out to the pond and they're going to get water. And Miyake, for all intents and purposes, you know, embraces Shirase. And first she, you know, takes her by the hand, and the hand is enough to let you know, to let me know that I'm aware of your friendship and your kindness and the concern you have for me, and I appreciate it. And then they end up embracing, of course, after she flicks her in the forehead. But it was an even greater moment when the next video conference was going on toward the end, when Shirase has this, you know, sort of expulsion that Miyake just cannot forge for herself in that moment. Shirase's being the through line and speaking in her stead. And when Miyake sort of breaks down crying and Yuzuki comes over and grabs her, and Mari's even yelling, you know, from across the room. Mari, who the whole episode, she's got like a tan on her face and just her eyes are, you know, still pale. And when her mother and sister or whatever it is make fun of her at the start of the episode for that, I didn't denote it. I didn't detect that she actually had like tan on her face, but not around her eyes because of the goggles that she was wearing. It wasn't until like as the episode went on that I started to notice it more and more. And I was like, oh, that's why they were making fun of her. That's why you look like that, they ask her. But, you know, all of the girls got involved to have Miyake's back effectively, and truly, well and truly, much as was kind of the learning curve previously with Yuzuki. When were we friends? When did we decide that? You know, I missed the memo, and how do you perceive that and all that kind of stuff. This was kind of Miyake's moment to that effect. I mean, she is considering these girls her friends and compatriots, and we see by the end of this episode how much, because they have her back, because they're telling off this trio of bitches that, you know, demeaned her and caused her sort of ousting of school, officializing the ousting that she already felt outcast for a time after they messed with her, you know, telling her to win the race rather than giving the third years, because it was their final year, a leg up and all this kind of stuff, and show them respect, you know. And it was really heartwarming. But by and large, it was really surprising, as I say. That's the thing I go back to, where my friend, as I say, had given me the heads up that he had seen a lot of other people talking about, well, you know, in this one episode, they showed like track shoes. In another episode, they showed maybe like a uniform, or they made little allusions to it. And I was always so much more focused on whatever the plot of the episode was. I wasn't perceptive of those little things, those little nods. I didn't know that it was actually building to something. And boy, did it build to a boil in this episode. And it was quite spectacular in the end to see Miyake, you know, break down that facade of happiness and putting her focus on that joy and happiness, even if it isn't fake, you know, and actually just having an all-out rage fest against the snow, as I say, kicking the snow and kicking a bucket and whatever. And it felt out of character a little bit. That's how surprising it was, but it was understandable once it was described what had happened to her and the ill effects that these three pseudo friends, as they consider themselves, again trying to get in the limelight through this video conferencing that's going to be televised and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it was all really enlightening and intriguing because I expected none of it. So, spectacular episode. Once again, as far as I'm concerned, I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below what you thought of episode 11 of Sora, Yori, and Tooi Basho. If you've seen it as well, if you enjoyed it as much as I did, were surprised as much as I was, how in-depth this whole track-running thing had played a part in Miyake's, redirecting her entire life out of school and whatever like that, and how sort of closely knit it was to the kinds of things like Shirase and Yuzuki, for their parts, have gone through and experienced. I think Mari's probably, the one who's experienced the least kind of that. I mean, she got a little bit of it, toward the beginning of their building up to this Antarctic journey, when she had sidled up with Shirase and she was feeling sort of the burn from everyone, their mistreatment of Shirase, not having faith in her, belief in her, thinking she was serious, that she'd ever actually accomplish anything. So Mari did get a taste of it because she started to get that as well. And then, of course, with her friend sort of turning back on her and making up stories about her and everything like that. So I guess she's probably had a bigger taste of it than I'm categorizing here. But it's all four girls, they've been through similar scenarios, and that's just made them forge that much closer knit, and so yeah, as I say, whatever insights you may have or things that I missed or whatever like that, your overall appraisal of the episode, love it or hate it, anything goes in the comments below. And I always love hearing from you. I always love having the conversation back and forth. Otherwise, that'll be pretty much it for me on this. Hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.